Thank you very much, Mr.
Springfield's Talk 1041. Welcome to the show, everyone. Good Monday. Those of you with power, I think quite a few still without. I know that we had power issues here at the station, and we're still, of course, as oftentimes is the case, trying to figure out what it screwed up, what it affected, and we don't know how much. We know that just kind of lay it out here for you. Lay it out for you. We may have technical issues during the show because of the board that we utilize. It's digital, of course, and there are things that are all wacky and screwy, and so we're going to, here in a bit, test it by going to news and commercials and see whether or not you're able to hear that. I'm assuming you're able to hear me now. We are up on YouTube, so you can watch us there if you'd like to. That's Springfield's Talk 1041. Of course, just, those storms yesterday, the big local story, clearly taking out, well, a lot of damage. Of course, I had tree damage. I always have tree damage. This is like every slight breeze, it seems as if the trees in my yard, and I've got quite a few, suffered tree damage. And once again, that was the case. So, but I know that just Springfield really had a lot of it, as it did some of the other surrounding areas. Did you have it up there north?
No, we were actually okay. Now,
All
I mean,
right.
we had some pretty strong winds, but I mean, no damage whatsoever. But I did think of you when all the wind was rolling through. I
Oh, yeah.
thought, oh, I get to make fun of him
Yeah.
again because you always have
Oh, yeah.
a plethora of tree
Yeah. Yeah.
branches in the back of your truck.
Yeah, and it's full from last time around,
I
and
know.
all I mean with logs, not just limbs, but logs are underneath the limbs from massive branches, and another massive branch went down. Yeah, with this storm, as did some others in the neighborhood. We were without power for a couple hours, but some people are still without power.
Yeah, did you actually have an update on the
Yeah.
facilities? Electric line crews continue working throughout the night to restore electric services to customers after the storm. So as of 4 a.m., approximately 25,000 customers are still without power. Now, an update from Liberty, they have about 2,500 customers without power, but yesterday they had close to 10,000. So it looks like crew lines are out there. They're working pretty hard to get y'all restored. So that is the update on that.
With Liberty, which is what we have, if you aren't aware of this, you can actually sign up to get text messages, which will let you know if your power's out, which I know it seems kind of obvious. But I guess if you are away from
Yeah,
home,
it's great if you're
or
at work or
yeah,
something.
well, and oftentimes you're like, well, do they know? I wonder if they know. I usually figure that they do, particularly if there's a large swath of neighborhoods in which the power's out. But I know, for example, I didn't know about the texting from Liberty until I think last time around
Yeah.
that we had power outages, and I went online just to see if on the website there was an estimated time, because like, well, I don't know how much info they'll provide, and it was at that time that I learned, oh, you can sign up for text messages. And so the power had been out for a while, received a text message, hey, we know, we're working on it, and then one came a little bit later, and it said the estimated time of having the power back up and running is 6:40 is what it said at the time, and this was, I don't know, 4:30 or so, or 5, when I forget what time, but nonetheless. And so then it was about I'd say 30, so at 6:40 it was a little bit after 6, and then got an updated text message saying that, hey, this is an update, the new time for the power to be on is now undetermined.
Oh
I know.
no.
I thought, this seems to be going backwards,
Oh
but
no.
it was maybe 7 o'clock or so, somewhere around there, that we got back up. So I know we were a lot luckier than a lot of other folks.
One of our listeners on YouTube wrote, I have Ozark Electric and my ice cream has melted. I still have no power.
Uh,
What a sad way to start Monday.
yeah, yeah. Well, I don't think there's any injuries or anything. I mean, we weren't talking about
Right.
tornadic activity, and I did see some people like, I didn't hear sirens go off. Well, the sirens go off for tornadoes. That's what, or tornado related activity, and that of course doesn't mean that you can't still get damage. But I don't think with storms like this, there's a great deal of fear that houses are going to be blown completely down. But it obviously can do a great deal of damage, and so the power obviously will keep you updated throughout the day. I'm sure Color 10 and Fox 49, Ozarks First, will be doing the same as well, and hopefully, for those that still do not have power, it will not take as long as it did when the last storms came through. Because
Fingers
I mean,
crossed.
it seemed like it was days,
It
wasn't it?
was, yeah.
That's a very frustrating thing if you are without power. But are we expecting potential storms this afternoon again?
I believe so.
Yeah, I thought I
Okay,
heard.
so the National Weather Service said that there is a 40 to 60% chance of scattered showers and thunderstorms across southwest Missouri and extreme southeast Kansas today. And they say it's just kind of a marginal risk, but the risk is still there.
Well, and we knew yesterday there was a chance, but I don't think. And
Yeah,
sometimes you don't know. I mean, it just bam.
I thought it
It's
was going to just be, just a bit of rain, a little thunder and lightning, but it's pretty significant.
Yeah. All right. So there's a lot of things that have taken place since Friday. Of course, the big news item. Well, one of the big news items was the Supreme Court, and their dealing with the issue of nationwide injunctions in the context of deportations, and the larger implications here is regarding these just random judges, hundreds and hundreds of judges with their own little jurisdictions across the country, and they have begun dictating to the entire country based off their rulings. And this isn't really anything that we've had to deal with in such a significant way. And so the Supreme Court put an end to that, essentially saying you can't do it. Now, it was 6-3. One of the dissenters was Kagan, who just not a couple of years ago was taking publicly the exact opposite position. So it's very clear that she set aside her actual judgment and instead, as a left-wing activist, voted her opinion was now based on the fact that, oh, well, Trump is president, because Biden was president when she used to talk about this issue, and we have audio of this in public forums where she's like, you cannot have, just insane, this idea that you can have these district court judges putting nationwide injunctions into place. You can't function as a society like that. Well, that, of course, is what's been happening under Trump, and all of a sudden, she apparently supports it. Now, you also have that nut job, Jackson Brown, who her ruling was so not rooted in anything whatsoever that Amy Coney Barrett essentially noted that in the fact that, and it wasn't because she dissented, because she didn't label Sotomayor or Kagan in this capacity, but the fact that she's not even citing anything legal. But this, of course, is a woman who could not determine the difference between a man and a woman. So the implications of this, it's a very positive thing for the country, and it essentially puts a stop, or at least it should, to these left-wing judges that decide they're going to play king for a day and have greater authority than the president and even the Supreme Court in many of these different rulings and capacities. So there was this amazing peace deal that was signed between Rwanda and Congo. We're going to talk about that as well. And that, of course, Donald Trump. Here's just, and it's amazing you see all of the successes, yet somehow Republicans in the Senate seem to make it impossible for any of these great deals to be made right here in the United States. We'll talk with Congressman Burleson as well, the big, beautiful bill, where it stands. I know it can get very confusing, and frankly, most people just tune it out because, are these senators that are blocking it? Is it because it doesn't do enough, or because it does too much? Is it because they want to continue with all the corruption and the money and the irresponsible spending, or is it because they think that the changes that are being made are not enough? And it can be an easy tune-out factor. So we'll have that and get Congressman Burleson's thoughts on it in the 7 o'clock hour. Now, I mentioned, if you're just joining, the fact that we are bored here, power outages cause some issues. And so what we're going to try to do is jump over to news and see if it is there. So what may occur, yeah, well, you'll either hear it or you won't. And so just bear with us as we sort of try to muddle our way through these technical issues this morning. All right, well, it looks like that's
Yeah,
going to
that
work.
worked.
Okay,
You know what?
excellent.
We got something going for us today, don't we?
Yes, we do. We done got lots.
The first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see a chance for scattered showers and thunderstorms, otherwise partly sunny with a high near 87. Tonight a chance for showers and thunderstorms with a low around 67. For your Tuesday, mostly sunny with a high near 85, and on Wednesday sunny with a high near 88.
Test one other thing real quick.
Thank you very much.
Hey.
Okay, yes, thank goodness. I have a lot of great audio to play this morning. Well, and thanks to you, junior engineer over here, bypassing the burnt out part of the board. And
I didn't know if it was going to work, but you know what?
well,
I feel good about myself.
It indicates it should not be. The little symbol here, as best we know, indicates, hey, you can't do this. This will not work.
Unless you want to.
But yeah, unless you want to. So I guess the fact that oftentimes these things don't work, the fact that it said, hey, this won't work, the fact that that is not working
Yes.
is a good thing because they cancel each other out.
That's true.
So we're rocking and rolling, baby. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. Today, I'm gonna pull this back up. There was a shelter in place, not here, but this was in Idaho. That shelter in place has been lifted after police share a major update. They have apparently found a body of a deceased man. And this deceased man is believed to have been the sniper that was shooting at firefighters. Were you following this? Did you see this last night? Yeah, it came up, or yesterday afternoon, I guess. So there was a fire in Idaho, brush fire. Fire show up in order to put it out, and a sniper started taking some of them out. Apparently, also when law enforcement got on the scene, it was a similar situation, though no reports of law enforcement being hit. So the SWAT team, they have located a deceased man and a nearby firearm hours after the sniper shot and killed 2 firefighters, injured another while they were battling the wildfire in Idaho. Authorities confirmed late last night. The Kootenai County Sheriff's Office said the deceased male was located on Canfield Mountain. A shelter in place was lifted, but an active wildfire remained, according to the sheriff's office. The update came hours after the International Association of Firefighters confirmed that the 2 victims were killed were firefighters. Some 300 law enforcement officers were also on the scene. FBI Director Dan Bongino said the agency responded to the scene to provide tactical and operational support, saying just before 9 o'clock last night, FBI technical teams and tactical assets are currently on the scene providing support. It remains an active and very dangerous scene. So it doesn't appear as if there is it says a deceased man, and I'm not sure if that is because of law enforcement action or self-inflicted or because of the fire. That information doesn't appear to be available yet. Now, there was a third firefighter that also was shot, and according to a news conference, that third firefighter is fighting for his life, but is considered now evidently to be in stable condition after undergoing surgery. So it appears as if that particular individual is going to be all right. So that's the latest on that. There was over the weekend, Trump had announced he was going to he was calling off, or maybe this was as early as Friday, trade talks with Canada, because Canada was going to put into place a tax on U.S. technology. And Trump was like, nah, I don't think so. And, you got this new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, and he was really big on campaigning against showing Trump and standing up to Trump. And it was largely seen as the reason that entire election turned around for the left-wing government. And they were like, yeah, nationalism, Canada's awesome. We're going to get somebody in there that's really going to stick it to you. And not that Poilievre, the more conservative candidate, was somebody that was, this massive Trump supporter and pushover by any stretch. But he took the measured approach of, look, Trump's going to do what he believes is best for the United States, and I'm going to do what I believe is in the best interest of Canada. I don't think we should be enemies. We can work together. There's a lot of mutual benefit, whereas Mark Carney was more about, oh, I'll show that Trump guy. Who does he think he is? We don't need the Americans. And they're like, yeah. And so there was going to be this tax put on technology firms, and it was slated to go into effect, I believe, today. And so Trump was like, all right, so trade talks are over. We're not going to do that any longer. So what would the response be from Mark Carney? The big, tough, we won't back down when Donald Trump comes a-knocking. What will the Canadians do? Well, it was announced last night it's suspending the tax on U.S. technology firms that caused President Trump to suspend the trade negotiations between the two nations. The Canadian government announced it was suspending enforcement of the tax that was due to be collected starting today, saying the action was taken, quote, in anticipation of a mutually beneficial comprehensive trade agreement with the United States. Prime Minister Mark Carney informed Trump of the decision, and the two sides plan to resume trade talks on or about July 21st. Trump had called the tax on technology firms an attack on America and suspended trade talks Friday in an effort to pressure Canada. And I just can't help but wonder what those Canadians that voted for Mark Carney, because, we're going to show Donald Trump not going to let us be pushed around, and, he's not going to, we're going to quit caving to the Americans. That's right, by gosh, we need a real fighter. And I mean, bam, just like that, Carney's like, okay, never mind. Let's get together and talk. I wonder if there's a great deal of disappointment from those who voted for Carney, thinking he was really going to stick it to the United States of America. I don't know. Those are the sort of stories I just enjoy somewhat. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. All right. I don't. Is our streaming app, is that functional? I just thought of that.
Oh, you know what? I don't. I
Yeah,
were good on YouTube, but let me check our stream as
it's a
well.
good call. I didn't think of that
I
there.
feel
As
pretty
like many of you,
confident.
we had some. We are back up on power here. You know what? I didn't actually tell anyone.
What?
Um, when I pulled up, there was no power. Now our backup generators were working.
Uh-huh.
We were on air, but I pulled up and everything was dark. And right when I put the truck in park, everything came on.
Oh.
So it had just come on fully when I got here earlier
It
this
was like,
morning.
Nick Reed is here. You
Yeah,
can now
I know. That's what it
shine.
was like. It was like, oh, he's here.
Well, I
Yeah,
texted you. It was like 4:15 in the morning.
yeah.
Because I was afraid that it was going to be another thing where nobody had power for like days.
Right.
And I looked at the CU map, and it was like this little area that the studio's located in. It was the hardest hit. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh no. Hopefully we have power, which we do. And I'm very happy about that.
Indeed, indeed.
Okay, I'm going to go check this really quick.
Okay. What do you? Oh, got it. No one has. Let's see. Okay. No one has said. Someone said they're listening online and they got news. So it looks like we're good. Hey, I want to mention as we do get into it's the last day of June. Huge 4th of July savings, big deal. You know, oftentimes you get different industries that really focus on these particular holidays, and the Pinnaker family is all set up, raring to go. Huge 4th of July savings. Now, a reminder, particularly Independence Day and Go America, 70% of Honda automobiles sold in the U.S. are made right here in America. Ridgeline, Passport, and Odyssey in Alabama specifically. The Ridgeline, Passport, and Odyssey, and the Accord and the Pilot fall into the top 15 American-made models as well. You can still get a 0.99% interest rate on the new electric Honda Prologue if electric vehicles are your thing, and as low as 2.49% on the new Honda Hybrid, or the new Accord Hybrid and the new Honda CR-V. Or you can lease one of the smaller SUVs, the new Honda HR-V, or a new Honda CR-V for as low as $298 a month. And they still have the free gas for 3 months during the summer event. So those are all some of the things you can take advantage of with the good people, family-owned Pinnaker Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. Let's see here. All right, we're going to get a traffic update. And then I want to talk a bit about this, which isn't going to get a tremendous amount of attention. One, a lot of other things going on. It happened over the weekend, but also because it is yet another incredible deal that has come about because of Donald Trump. And a lot of people will look at this, you know, the Congo, Rwanda peace deal like, well, I mean, what's going on there? They have been tearing at each other for 3 decades. 3 decades. Murder, slaughter, horrific. And on, I believe it was Saturday, it's Friday or Saturday, in the Oval Office, foreign ministers from each of the 2 countries signing off on a peace agreement, thanking Donald Trump. And so here is, you know, it's another tremendous step forward. And the thing about these peace deals that make them different than the way peace deals have oftentimes been crafted in the past is that they are created in a way that abiding by them is beneficial for each country. It's not just because we want to start getting along. It is, and this is how Trump makes this stuff happen. He makes it beneficial. Not just symbolically beneficial, but, oh, wait, if we start getting along, this is going to happen? Well, that's good. So deciding to not try and keep the peace deal intact is something that would be detrimental to each or both of the 2 sides. And so it has these built-in mechanisms of self-enforcement to a large degree. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that it's always going to work out famously and everything is absolutely wonderful. But this is part of why it is that Donald Trump makes these deals work. And very meaningful deals. This is why the Abraham Accords between the numerous different countries throughout the Middle East and Israel have not fallen apart. They have not disintegrated. Because even once Trump was no longer in office, all of the sides involved in the peace deal realized, hey, being in this peace deal actually benefits us. This is actually a good thing. It's part of the brilliance of it. Then, in the meantime, over hilarious audio on CNN is after this deal took place, after the coverage of it and the signing of it, you had one CNN panelist apparently didn't even realize that it happened and claiming that, well, this isn't really a done deal. And Scott Jennings is like, yeah, maybe you ought to watch the news before you come on here because it happened already. And it's CNN, so of course that panelist continued to double down. So we've got all that coming up. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk at text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed.
Field's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see a slight chance for scattered showers and thunderstorms, otherwise partly sunny with a high near 87. Tonight a chance of showers and thunderstorms with a low around 67. For your Tuesday, mostly sunny with a high near 85. And for your Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 88.
This following is going to be show content based off me being too lazy to send a full text back to someone. It's just easier for me to answer it on air. Hey, tell Nick, this is Lee, and I asked, was TJ Miller awesome or what? So first off, hey, Lee, and we were in line to see TJ Miller. I did not realize, this was at the Blue Room Comedy Club, the reason he was back here is because his New Year's Eve show got canceled.
Oh.
I had no idea that was the
I didn't
case. I
realize
just
that.
thought he was coming back to the area. And so, short answer, and then I'll explain it, was we didn't get to see the show.
Boo.
I know. Now, what had happened was, and I think I touched on this some Friday. T.J. Miller, of course, he was scheduled to be here New Year's Eve, and I think the day before, the 30th of December as well. So we had him on the show, and so every so often we do those interviews. Honestly, it's usually if it's a higher profile person or if it's somebody that I think is going to be interesting and I thought, well, T.J. Miller might fit that bill. And I really genuinely enjoyed having him on the show. He actually did research on us and everything. Remember that?
Yeah.
And he was just very conversational. I really, really enjoyed it. And so a few weeks ago, his, I guess, agent or book, I don't know the proper title of the guy, his name's Alan, had reached out again because I told him, I said, if he's ever going to be back in the area, let me know. I'd like to have him on again. And he had sent a message, an email a couple weeks ago saying, hey, he's going to be back in the area. Would you like to have him on again? I don't know what happened, but I just kind of forgot about that until Thursday night when he followed up and was like, hey, can you get back with me ASAP if you want to have him on? And I thought, oh, yeah, okay. Let me see when he's going to be in town because I wasn't even sure what the dates were. Well, it was Friday and Saturday. So by then it was too late to be able to have him on air because Friday was the Heroes Breakfast and, we just weren't set up in that capacity to have him on via phone. It's not impossible, but it's just, sometimes not. It's not going to work out very well technically. And so I had emailed his guy back, and I was like, I'm really, really sorry. This is totally my fault. But I'm going to mention during the show Friday, I'm going to promote the show, which I did. I talked about the fact that he was going to be, at the Blue Room Comedy Club again. So I got later on in the day, he's like, hey, yeah, it's awesome, no problem. He's like, but you asking if I wanted tickets. And I was like, yeah, that'd be totally awesome. Love to have some tickets. And so he's like, all right, it's been arranged. They'll have tickets for you at Will Call. I hate Will Call. Will Call to me is the most anxiety-inducing, frustrating thing in the world because I swear, it's just like all it takes is one person to not do what they're supposed to do. And you get there, you wait in line, or you find the parking, you do all this stuff, only to be told, nope, we don't have it. And it's aggravating. You know that they're, people are like, oh, they're just trying to scam or something. And these are the thoughts that go through my mind. And I thought, well, okay, we'll go anyhow. So my wife and I would go down there, and sure enough, nope, we don't have your name down.
Ugh, so aggravating.
I was like, ugh. And so he was like, well, could it be under another name? No, it would not be under another name. And so he's like, well, why don't you just stand over there? And we stood over there for like 15, 20 minutes, ignored. And so I told him, I said, let's just go. And so anyhow, did not get to. But now that being said, I know for a fact, because I was sent afterwards the text message communications showing that the request for a ticket for me and one other person, my wife, was seen and recognized and confirmed. So it wasn't anything on TJ Miller's side. I don't know where it got screwed up, but anyhow, that was an awful lot to text back. And I'm glad that the show was awesome. Part of the reason I did also want to read the email is because he said it was a totally awesome show, and I'm glad to hear that.
Well, that's good.
All right.
Sorry you didn't get in.
Hey, next time. I'll go see him next time.
There you go.
You know what?
He needs to just come in studio.
Yeah.
We'll just do a private show for the listeners.
Yeah, maybe he'll fill in or something.
Oh, could you imagine?
Yeah. He's like at that point in his career, he's like, I'll do anything. But I'm glad it was
It'd
a good
be entertaining.
show. And if he is back in the area again, we'll definitely have him on the show. And I know the later performance was sold out. That's what it said online. And then I heard when we were standing there, somebody say that the show we were supposed to be in was sold out. And that was another reason I was like, if this is sold out as well, it's like I don't want to be a hassle about the whole thing. It's just let's just go. So we did, and we had a nice evening anyhow.
There you go.
Yeah. So there's that story.
Everything worked out.
Everything worked out just fine. All right, coming up, I'm going to play audio, which is really fantastic. Another peace deal that is put together by the Trump administration. And I find it real interesting that such a white supremacist would spend his time trying to, and his efforts, that being the president of the United States, as busy as he is, as much as he has on his plate, that he would take the time to work out a peace agreement between two African countries. It's a really weird thing for a white supremacist racist to do. But once again, Trump, whether it is the worst Hitler ever, the worst dictator ever, the worst white supremacist ever, when people are like, well, you just are a cult leader. I bet you can't name anything Trump doesn't do well. Well, those are three right there that he proves to fail at over and over and over again. Dictator, Hitler, fascist as well, and white supremacist. He's very, very bad at these things, and that was proven once again over the weekend. That next. All right, everyone. Let's look at yet another peace deal that has come underway, this time between two African countries. Again, Donald Trump proving to be the worst white supremacist ever. Instead of taking the position, we'll just let them all kill each other. This 30-year war that has been going on between Congo and Rwanda, with just, I mean, complete brutality, chaos, and so forth. Trump has managed to put together a peace agreement that is meaningful. It's not just symbolic. It has meaningful steps to it. There's a joint security cooperation mechanism between the two countries that is going to be clicked into place, and it will be monitoring the withdrawal of Rwanda troops from the Congo within 90 days. So these are like real things that are happening. Not, okay, if everyone gets along, then it's just going to be wonderful, and we might then figure out some way to benefit you, or giving them, and that's usually what the way that we've operated in the past is giving them something up front, other countries, if they just sign a piece of paper. And they're already given the gift, like Iran with that joint agreement in which they get pallets of billions of dollars and all of this stuff. They get it all up front. So then they don't have to do anything. It's just because they know it's not, there aren't going to be take-backsies. And Trump, he recognizes, no, the benefit has to come from complying with the agreement. That's how you get the agreement to, in all likelihood, stay in place. And this happens to be one of the agreements. So I want to play a couple bits of audio. This is in the Oval Office. This is the foreign minister of Rwanda.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This is indeed historical because it's the signing of a peace agreement between Congo and Rwanda to end a conflict that has been going on for 30 years. And there has been many mediation, facilitation in the past, but none of them succeeded. And we believe that it's because of your leadership and your steadfast commitment to this process, with also a new approach of economic integration, regional economic integration, which is important to allow Rwanda and DRC working together, because this is a very rich region with cross-border trade, with minerals, with natural wealth. So with the US standing side by side with Rwanda and DRC, we believe that we will achieve a long-time peace. And we also believe that, as my colleague from DRC stated, it's important for the United States to stay committed, because today we signed, but now we need to implement what we have signed in order to open this new era you were talking about of prosperity, so that we can reap the economic dividend of peace. So for this economic integration framework to be implemented, it's important for the US to accompany the parties to implement what we have signed, because in the past we have signed so many agreements that were not implemented. And we are really, we believe that with your leadership, with the involvement of the United States administration, we will reach that goal. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
And then there's the foreign minister, also same setting in the Oval Office of this foreign minister of the Republic of Congo.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, for having us here. I think I can summarize my contribution in 3 main points. First of all, thank you and congratulations indeed for this remarkable milestone, which is putting an end to 30 years of conflict and of suffering, and which is redefining the perspectives that millions of Congolese and of citizens of the greater Great Lakes region will have. The second point is stay committed, stay on board. We need the United States to make sure that this agreement holds and that you hold us accountable. And the third point is, if you stay on board, I think there are so many perspectives that we can transform our partnerships through, and that can usher in an era of prosperity, of growth, and of shared bilateral relationships that go well beyond the challenges that we've shared together, and that can at least, or finally, focus on the potential and of the wealth that we can share. So again, our heartfelt gratitude to you on my behalf, but more importantly, on behalf of the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Thank you so much.
And of course, with Donald Trump, understanding that everyone, all participants need to have some benefit. That does include the United States, with the promise of investment in, rare minerals that are mined in that region of the world. And this is great for us because at the same time, this is what China has been doing for a very long time while we just ignored it. They have been expanding their footprint throughout areas of Africa, and they have been taking advantage of the fact that these different factions are constantly fighting, and they need revenue and money in order to keep fighting. Well, the Trump approach is, how about instead this? How about we show you the benefit, the financial benefit of, instead of fighting one another, of not fighting one another? And that is what has been crafted together here. So we have interest, they have interest, and this is something that has put an end officially to this 30 years of fighting. Now, that doesn't mean that you're obviously going to have people that try to disrupt this. There will be people who make the money, including, again, China, in many instances, they financially benefit from these warring factions, but as do a lot of people within that region of the world anyhow. That's their revenue source. It is to keep fighting. So there will be attempts to sabotage this deal. And Trump isn't naive to this, and it doesn't mean that simply because the parties, the two countries, benefit from not fighting officially against one another, that it's all going to be easy, and it may fall apart, but there is a tremendous amount of benefit put into it for them to succeed, as both foreign ministers indicated. Now, all that being said, and this is again something that has been tried over and over and over again, But it has never gotten to this point of this official coming together and, oh, yeah, okay, we all agree to this because this looks good for us until now. And frankly, even for the media, they don't really have a great deal of interest in what goes on in Africa. It's not on their map. So much so. And so, there isn't much coverage of it, but Trump paid attention. And Trump decided that he was going to help craft this agreement. And for someone we're told is completely racist to pick two countries in Africa to spend to essentially gift them his ability to do this stuff shows he's not a very good racist. Now, after this ceremony took place, got to get a traffic update here. There's a discussion about it on CNN, and one of the panelists, apparently, though this should come as no surprise, wasn't watching the news and didn't even know that this deal had been signed because she comes on there, Scott Jennings is there to correct her, and starts to dismiss the likelihood that this deal will be signed, citing somebody from the past saying, this deal's far from over. And he keeps trying to tell her, it already happened, and she just wasn't listening. That next. After the Oval Office signing of the peace agreement between Congo and Rwanda, in which the foreign minister of each country was there, thanking Trump, thanking the United States, noting that this has been tried many times before, but it wasn't until now, until Trump's approach, that anything meaningful could be done. There was a discussion about it on CNN, and one of the regular panelists there, Carrie Champion, apparently hadn't watched the news and did not realize that this agreement had been signed because she was downplaying the fact that it would ever be signed.
Jobs, not jobs. A foreign minister from Rwanda has told CNN, he said he's committed to supporting this ongoing negotiation, but warned that ending the conflict will depend on political will and the good faith. And he doesn't know if that is true, referring to the DRC's government. It's not done. It's not done.
You didn't watch the news yesterday. They literally announced it in the Oval Office.
Question.
Literally in the Oval Office.
You said something earlier. You said, and you kind of agree with Pete when he says there's something about the media where they feel like they want to disprove Donald Trump. Is that what you said? Something to that effect?
That happens every day.
And you think that's what they want to do, right? You think the media is going in to say he's lying and he's not telling the truth. You believe that?
That is the standing disposition.
Do you believe that he tells the truth?
Yeah, I do. Every time.
You think the president tells the truth? This current president tells the truth often.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. I also think that, to our point that we haven't established, he does announce things before it's too soon.
They literally had the countries in there.
The program isn't.
I feel like you should watch the news.
Okay. I feel like you should stop trying to defend him just to defend him. I think you guys should stop.
CNN.
Aren't they supposed to be reporting the news?
Right.
You would think that they might know what they're talking about before they come out there.
And this, They don't even listen.
No.
I mean, he's like, this happened yesterday. The deal was signed. She's on there claiming she's saying, well, a foreign minister claimed that he had, great reservations that this would ever be signed, that he wasn't confident. And so Scott Jennings, like, it just happened. It was in the Oval Office. And so she just doesn't listen. I don't know if she didn't know. And then goes off on this, well, maybe you shouldn't believe Trump. That's irrelevant. What is relevant are the facts. It doesn't matter whether Trump always tells the truth, never tells the truth, sometimes tells the truth. It doesn't matter that outfits like CNN are always trying to prove Trump wrong. And frankly, even if that is your motivating factor, as long as you report what factually occurs, okay. I mean, you're going to find yourself very disappointed because Trump turns out to be right, very consistently when it comes to dealing with these particular situations. And anytime there's a conflict between what Trump says and the media says, I mean, do we need to go down the list of how many times the media is wrong? But that's just irrelevant. Well, do you think Trump always tells the truth all the time? You believe him? What does that have to do with anything at that given point? You are claiming that there may not be any sort of official agreement signed between the two countries based off of what some foreign minister said. And I'm telling you, the reality is just yesterday, it happened. It already happened. The fact that anyone watches any of these networks is just insane. And these are the same networks that love to tell themselves the reason there's no trust in the media any longer is because of Donald Trump, not because of stuff like this. I mean, it is a really remarkable thing to watch. God bless Scott Jennings for getting in that environment on a daily basis. I can't imagine trying to have intellectual conversation with people that are so void of not just truth and morals, but even knowing what's going on in the world. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, changing your outdoor living space into, well, a living space, going from, maybe just a yard with some trees and your standard grass, that piece of land that your home is on, whether it's large or small, is very, very expensive. We pay a lot for it, yet somehow it's the actual structure, the infrastructure of the home that we tend to put so much of a focus on. And a lot of people wise up and they expand the living space of the home into the outdoors, which is just such a great thing to do, whether it's entertaining and for your own just little getaway outside from the rest of the family, or maybe you live by yourself and you just like to sit out at the end of the evening with a nice book or whatever. Whatever it is you want to do. But it's just so much nicer to have an actual comfortable living space back there. Water features, lighting features, sound features if you'd like, smokeless fire pits, an outdoor kitchen, as big or as small as you need it. They can design it for you. Their website is great for getting an estimated just ballpark figure of what it is you're looking to do in terms of cost, what it'll cost. And then you can see a lot of before and after projects that they've done right here in the Ozarks. That is Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. Their website is hunterhardscapes.com. If you forget it, don't worry. You can always go to ksgf.com under Nick's endorsements, and you can find it there. There are two stories here that, hand in hand, I think really, again, demonstrate how out of touch the Democrats are with the average Americans and how they consistently default to the side of bad guys. One story, nearly every House Democrat votes against condemning violent anti-ICE riots in Los Angeles. The resolution, introduced by Republican Georgia Rep. Earl Carter, aimed to denounce the riots that targeted federal ICE agents, damaged property, and prompted the deployment of the National Guard and U.S. Marines. Quote, "It is our duty in the House of Representatives to send a clear message to those who harm our local and federal law enforcement. You have no place here." This was in a press release about the resolution, continuing as disturbing images emerge from the violent riots in L.A., including foreign nationals harming officers while waving other countries' flags. We, in Congress, must make our stance perfectly clear. We back the blue, we support our ICE officers, and we will defend our cities from rioting, lawlessness, and destruction. Out of 212 House Democrats, 195 voted against the measure. There were 75 Democrats that broke ranks with the party and voted alongside Republicans condemning attacking law enforcement in this country. This is how far the Democrat Party has fallen. This is a no-brainer thing. No-brainer. And it's probably fair to recognize that there may have this could have been done to some degree for political purposes. The only reason, though, that it could be done for political purposes is the knowledge that Democrats would not, to a large degree, support condemning attacks on law enforcement. You will have those on the left that will say, well, this is just, it's just political, that's all. What does that say about you? That simply saying, by the way, trying to murder ICE officers, trying to, carry out terrorist attacks against law enforcement and stuff. That's something that as a country and as Congress we're against. What does that say about you if it is recognized that you may not support that this can become political? On the flip side, you have what an increasing number of Democrats are pushing for. In this particular case, New York Representative Nadia Velázquez held a press conference outside an immigration court to advocate for passage of her bill to ban immigration and custom enforcement agents, ICE, from wearing masks while making arrests. Hakeem Jeffries, the election-denying minority leader in the House, leader of the Democrat Party, is one of numerous Democrats that have argued that these ICE agents should not be able to hide their identity while making these arrests. Now, the reason that they do this, and most people recognize this, It is because we're not just dealing with average everyday people. These are number one, even if those that you are arresting are everyday people, but guess who has a watchful eye on you? It is the human traffickers. It is the drug dealers. And I don't know if you've turned on, I know you have, but for the Democrats that are pushing for this, they know what happens in other countries when it is discovered what is, or who's responsible for cracking down on the drug cartels. They murder not just those individuals, but oftentimes their families. That is not a secret. That is one of the ways in which the human traffickers and the drug traffickers and the drug cartels are able to have such a strong hold on these other countries, is because nobody wants to be known as somebody who cracks down on them, because their life comes in, it becomes a dangerous lifestyle, not just, again, for the individual, but for their wives and their children. They get murdered. They get tortured. And the fact that you have Democrat lawmakers that want to expose these individuals to the same drug cartels that slit someone's throat at any given notice for any given reason, that's total and complete insanity. And it is yet again a demonstration why this is one of those 2080 issues. And we should be able to, though, now it is on the Senate side, and there's still a lot of discussion about the big, beautiful bill, but barring him being caught up in something, we should be able to talk with Congressman Burleson and get his thoughts on where it stands over there. And if it does pass, whether or not that's a good thing. Is it something that the House is going to just dismiss out of hand, or is it something that they are going to be able to move forward on? We'll have all that coming up. Right now, the latest news update.
I do have a couple of updates for you for
Oh.
the power. City Utilities is now reporting that about 14,000 customers are without power in the Springfield area, and Liberty Utilities, about 2,400 customers are without power as of right now.
Okay.
The first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see a slight chance for scattered showers and thunderstorms, otherwise partly sunny with a high near 87. Tonight, a chance of showers and thunderstorms once again with a low around 67. For your Tuesday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 85. And looking ahead to Wednesday, sunny with a high near 88.
Streaming live, KSGF.com. Also, over there on YouTube. Make sure. There we go. I hit the magic button so that Congressman Burleson will be on our YouTube live stream, which is Springfield Talk 104.
Crisis averted.
Crisis averted. Congressman Burleson, how do you do, sir?
Good morning.
Hey, good morning to you. All right. Now, I've been watching the Senate on this stuff with the big, beautiful bill, and you've got the coverage about how it may, maybe having a hard time getting across the finish line. Now, on one hand, you have, for example, Tillis, who is like, I'm going to vote against this. And Trump's like, oh, yeah, well, guess what? We'll primary you. And Tillis is like, I'm not going to run now. And so, it makes it appear as if those who are not supportive of this aren't supportive of it because it just is too fiscally responsible. But I also know that probably isn't that realistic. So what is going on over there with them? What are your thoughts about what it is they're crafting? And if it does eventually get out of the Senate, is it something that's going to have problems with you all over in the House?
That's a lot to unpack.
Yeah,
yeah.
I know. Sorry.
So it went over to the Senate, and it was almost deficit neutral when it went over. That's why it was really hard to swallow, but it was pretty much a rounding error. It increased the deficit by half, probably 50 to 70 billion. Okay, out of a $7 trillion spend, that's not much, but it was basically deficit neutral. But it had a lot of these policy wins in it, things like the Second Amendment language that eliminated the registration and tax on suppressors and short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns. That was added in the Senate committee, but we were able to get suppressors out of the House. We were able to get big wins like no federal funds going to Planned Parenthood, or money going to illegal immigrants on Medicaid. So we were able to get a lot of wins when it came to the SNAP program. And it gets over to the Senate, and pretty much anything good was stripped out by the Senate parliamentarian, and they've had to finagle things and get them back, as a watered down version or a stripped down version. For example, on the Second Amendment stuff, they are not eliminating the registration process, but they're moving the tax from $200 down to $0. If that gives you an idea.
All right.
Fiscally, the impact, instead of being about 70 billion above, and increasing the deficit by about 70 billion, they're increasing it by 1.3 trillion. So over a 10-year period, the deficit, instead of taking out about 20 trillion in new debt, we will take out about 21.3 trillion versus what the House sent over. Okay. Which is why you've got Ron Johnson, Rick Scott, Mike Lee. They filed amendments that they're going to try to bring that number down as much as possible. And on the House side, you have a bunch of fiscal hawks, including myself, who said that you can do whatever, the Senate can do whatever it wants, but it's got to fit within that framework and not grow the deficit, or else we will vote against it. And so that's where we stand. Okay. And so in order to get there, what the Senate's impulses are is to take what the House sent over, which is to make on the tax side, we made the current Trump tax cuts permanent. Okay. And then we added, for a temporary period of time, the no taxes on tip over time Social Security, knowing that the fiscal cost for that is enormous. And if you're going to put up that in the bill, then you end up in increasing the deficit by 1.3 trillion. Does that make sense?
Right.
And then that's what the Senate chose to do. The Senate chose to not make those temporary, to make them permanent, which means that the cost is increased by 1.3. In addition, I think they plussed up some other things, spending wise. So that's where we sit. So the House's framework says, okay, if you're going to cut taxes, extend them, make them permanent, that's fine, but you have to come up with more spending cuts,
right,
to pay for it. And the Senate is dragging its feet, and that's where you're seeing all these moderates people who once decried Obamacare are now like the biggest defenders of Obamacare and Medicaid expansion you could possibly imagine, screaming from the rooftops, including Tillis. And, Tillis makes me think of, it seems like very convenient that about every time we get to this point, there's always one or two or a handful of senators who are on their way out the door, and they basically give their middle finger to the Republican Party to stop us from accomplishing good things.
Why do you think it is? I'll just throw out what is in my mind. I try to determine motivating factors. I think, okay, well, they're, quote, bought and paid for. So the people who back them and the future jobs that they have are going to be offered by individuals who benefit from the out-of-control spending. Then I think, well, maybe they just, they've always pretended they're in a red area, so they ran as Republicans, but they really are big spenders. This is who they truly are. Sometimes I think it's just resentment. Because of Donald Trump, and here, I'm a statesman and I'm a U.S. senator, and here this guy, he knows what he's doing and everything, but who is he to tell me what to do? So just out of defiance, none of the answers seem to be, because it's what the constituents want. So what do you think the motivating factor is with some of these individuals that are on the Republican side sabotaging these efforts?
I would say many of them have never been truly fiscally conservative. They have always they've only played the game, and that's up to the voters to like smoke these people out. Clearly, the voters in North Carolina let Tillis be who he was for a long period of time, and they, when somebody's just a political animal and all they want to do is get reelected, they will say whatever. But their actions are what speaks louder. Right. And so I think that you start to see the trend, like whenever it's not consequential how they'll vote. But then you get to these moments and they kind of show who they really are.
We're talking with Congressman Burleson. Let's talk about the parliamentarian. This is a gal who has worked for Gore and I think Obama. She's clearly a left-winger. The purpose in any of this description that's not on point, please, you can bring it into better focus, but essentially is there to make sure that the Senate knows, hey, this doesn't really qualify for this particular sort of legislation. So this can't be in here if you are wanting a simple 50 vote. And so this has to be removed, this has to be removed, this has to be removed. It's my understanding that isn't it's almost a recommendation that they don't have to abide by that ruling. But then you have Thune coming out and saying, well, whatever she says, we're going to abide by it. To me, it seems as if this is almost a convenient cover for the Republicans that don't want fiscal responsibility, is to just sort of a wink and a nod. She removes the meaningful stuff. They say, golly gee whiz, she's a parliamentarian. There's nothing that we can do about it. And then we all get screwed. What do you is that a somewhat fair assessment?
Yeah, I think it is. At the end of the day, the Senate parliamentarian can be a foil, if you will. And if you're in leadership, for example, and you really don't like the Second Amendment stuff, then you could, and you don't want your members to have to vote on it, then you just craft the language in a way that that it will violate the rules of the parliamentarian. And then you say, we can't do it, right? Yeah. So the question is, how much does he push back when the parliamentarian has rejected something? And so you're seeing them push back on a number of things. And what they'll do is they'll go back and rewrite the language if they want it to pass. And so
now, when I've seen it written and described as it's not binding, I suppose, does that mean that the head of the Senate leadership can just say, okay, well, that's fine and good, but we're going to do it anyway? Are there procedures that have to take place, like a vote, in order to get it in compliance or to override it? What does that look like?
Yeah, we're getting into rules that I'm not
overly familiar
with because I don't work under those. But from what I understand, they can be overridden. the vice president could come in and they could have a vote
okay.
to override a particular ruling. But that again sets a precedent. And what they're worried about is that when the Democrats take things back, that they will run with that precedent.
I mean, and I know I'm probably just. It just seems obvious.
The Democrats will probably do it anyway.
Yeah. I mean, when have Democrats ever not done something because they're like, well, Republicans haven't done it, so we'd better not do it? I mean, it doesn't really seem as if it's that frequent that we hear that from the Democrats. I mean, they're the ones that always lead the charge on this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
what for me was frustrating is the irony of the fact that the Obamacare and the Green New Deal were both passed in reconciliation, and then here we have a Senate parliamentarian saying repealing those provisions doesn't meet the rules of reconciliation. That's what's ironic.
Congressman Burleson with us. As our listeners will listen to programs like this and our syndicated shows, obviously you get people like Ron Johnson and some of these others that have a platform as well as on TV. And I think that a lot of times they don't know who to listen to. In your assessment, if you can, whenever people are watching some of these different senators get on television or on the radio and they talk about this, whether it's a Ron Johnson or a Lindsey Graham or a Tillis or a Rand Paul, are there any of those individuals that you say, if you're going to listen to anyone, this might be the best person to listen to when it comes to this particular legislation?
There's 3 or 4 that are constantly that are like you and I. They're constantly trying to pull things to the right, and that is Ron Johnson, Mike Lee, Rick Scott, and sometimes Ted Cruz. That'll be like in the fight, trying to. They're willing to push back against leadership and be a thorn in order to make the bill more conservative. They're consistently doing that. So,
all right,
I'd say Rick Scott, Mike Lee, Ron Johnson.
Okay, excellent. That's very helpful. Congressman Burleson, anything else at all? I know we've taken all your time up talking about this budget situation, but just anything we're overlooking.
Just to give you an overview is what I'm watching what amendments happen today, because where it is right now, I don't believe I could possibly vote for it because it increases the deficit by 1.3 trillion. If the Senate gets the message, which we have sent, strong indications and messages to the Senate that this is unacceptable, it's got to get better. If they do make those changes, then I'll evaluate it. But it doesn't mean if it's not good enough, then I may vote to send it to conference, vote down the rule, trying to force this to go to a conference to make the bill better. So I just want everybody to know that's where I'm at right now.
I know it's not.
It's not because I want the bill to not pass.
Right.
It's because I'm not giving up the fight yet to make it as good as possible.
You look at the landscape and it's a little bit crazy because you've got Trump out there and he is able to make so many things happen, whether it is like over the weekend, there was this peace deal between Rwanda and the Republic of Congo. You've got the Abraham Accords. You have NATO that is, historically agreeing to contribute more. Yet here in our country, in which Republicans are in charge of everything, seemingly this should be an absolute easy no-brainer, yet this is where the big stumbling block is. And I know it's apples and oranges to some degree when you're dealing with leaders of other nations as opposed to having to deal with hundreds of different individuals with different constituencies. But you think of just all of the historic things that he is able to get accomplished, yet you've got a few Republicans in the Senate that are preventing what should be absolute no-brainer changes from taking place here in the United States. It's just crazy.
Yep, it is.
Congressman Burleson, as always, it is a great pleasure. Appreciate you being with us this morning. We'll talk with you next week.
It was easier to talk this morning because I'm not going through security.
Yeah, I know that
at
does
the
make it
airport.
much easier. Yeah, yeah. That in fact is, I'm sure, much easier for you. Have a great rest of your week.
Okay, you too. Bye.
All right, thank you. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. All right, ran a little behind. Want to thank Congressman Burleson spending that time with us. I thought it was helpful to hear that as we listen to some of these senators talk about the big, beautiful bill, he listed, let's see, Mike Lee, Ron Johnson, and Tim Scott as three that you can definitely listen to and know that they are the, quote, good guys when it comes to trying to really get some meaningful, just stop the financial hemorrhaging. And yeah, the fact that you have some of these Republicans that are tooth and nail fighting to keep the Green New Deal, fighting to keep the Obamacare aspects of this, it's very deflating as an American who votes for a number of these Republicans and support the Republican Party because they claim they're for fiscal responsibility until they're actually in charge and have the ability to do it. We're not even talking about like these massive, just bringing things back to a level in which back then we all agreed was too much spending. And it's why, and this is what the Republican Party doesn't seem to get. This is why they don't, they're not able to, on their own, really have these meaningful advances in terms of elections. Why Trump, they ride these Trump coattails when he's on the ballot, but then when they don't win a midterm election, particularly after, Biden during his second term, and as horrifyingly abysmal, to put it mildly, his first 2 years were, and the fact that many of us saw the cognitive decline, Republicans did not get these massive wins they expected. Well, why? Now, again, if you're in the 7th Congressional District, Congressman Burleson, and you're a fiscally responsible person, and, you are voting for someone that when they get there, they actually do that. But why would Republicans in so many of these other areas of the country that, they vote for Republicans because they say, oh, yeah, deficit and Obamacare and Green New Deal, but then they get in there and they're the ones who do everything they can to keep things the way that they are. That's why. That's why there's apathy among so many Republican voters. A traffic update.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see a chance for scattered showers in the afternoon, otherwise partly sunny skies with a high near 87. Tonight a chance of showers and thunderstorms with a low around 67. For your Tuesday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 85, and looking ahead to Wednesday, sunny with a high near 88.
All right, Mom Donnie, over the weekend, is demonstrating what it is that many of us had recognized, and that is he is going to be a big problem for the Democrat Party. And that is, the Democrats are struggling with how do we look normal again? Well, the first thing you have to do is get normal people in office. Increasingly, those so-called normal people are individuals that are wedged out of the party. They are becoming more and more irrelevant. One of the problems, of course, is anti-Semitism. And Mamdani was on NBC News Sunday, and he has been supportive of this globalize the Intifada movement. That is, we not only want all the Jews gone out of Israel, but just on the planet. There's no place on this planet for Jews. So the fight to eliminate Jews needs to be global. Now that Democrats have chosen their nominee to be mayor of New York City, in which there's a couple of Jewish people there, this push for the elimination of Jews through a global intifada is something that is just a little bit problematic. And so the media, of course, does what the media does, and they attempt to give him the ability to, quote, correct the record. Gotta explain this to us. And it's never this approach of, hey, this is why you're a problem. It is, hey, some people may have a problem with your supporting of globalizing the Intifada. What do you say to those people? Like they're the problem. Like Jews who don't want to be murdered and eliminated. What do you say to those people? And the problem that the Democrat Party has, again, is they treat anti-Semites and neo-Nazis and these people who want to finish what Hitler started as a constituency that they do not want to alienate. And so when the question is, hey, do you support a global intifada? The answer is no, I do not. But that is an answer that he apparently cannot give, and this is the painful exchange in which on 3 occasions in one setting here, you've got NBC Kristen Welker giving him the opportunity to figure out some way to say, oh, of course I'm not against it, or of course I don't support globalized intifada, but he doesn't do it. He can't bring himself to do it.
Recently asked about the term globalize the Intifada, if it makes you uncomfortable. In that moment, you did not condemn the phrase. Now, just so folks understand, it's a phrase that many people hear as a call to violence against Jews. There's been a lot of attention.
By the way, and I know some may see this as nitpicking, it isn't something that some people hear as a call for violence against Jews. It is a term that is used by people in the call to have violence against Jews. That's why it's heard that way. It's not like you have Jewish people and others that are just conspiracy theorists. They're like, wait, that sounds like code for something. The people who say it are saying it in the context of eliminating the Jews.
On this issue. So I want to give you an opportunity to respond here and now. Do you condemn that phrase, globalize the Intifada?
That's not language that I use. The language that I use and the language that I will continue to use to lead this city is that which speaks clearly to my intent, which is an intent grounded in a belief in universal human rights. And ultimately, that's what is the foundation of so much of my politics, the belief that freedom and justice and safety are things that to have meaning have to be applied to all people, and that includes Israelis and Palestinians alike.
But do you actually condemn it? I think that's the question and the outstanding issue that a number of people, both of the Jewish faith and beyond, have. Do you condemn that phase, globalize the Intifada, which a lot of people hear as a call to violence against Jews?
I've heard from many Jewish New Yorkers who have shared their concerns with me, especially in light of the horrific attacks that we saw in Washington, D.C. and in Boulder, Colorado, about this moment of anti-Semitism in our country and in our city. And I've heard those fears and I've had those conversations, and ultimately they are part and parcel of why in my campaign I've put forward a commitment to increase funding for anti-hate crime programming by 800%. I don't believe that the role of the mayor is to police speech in the manner especially of that of Donald Trump, who has put one New Yorker in jail who's just returned to his family, Mahmoud Khalil, for that very supposed crime of speech. Ultimately, what I think I need to show is the ability to not only talk about something, but to tackle it and to make clear that there's no room for anti-Semitism in this city. We have to root out that bigotry, and ultimately we do that through the actions, and that is the mayor I will be, one that protects Jewish New Yorkers and lives up to that commitment through the work that I do.
But quickly, for the people who care about the language and who feel really concerned by that phrase, why not just condemn it?
My concern is to start to walk down the line of language and making clear what language I believe is permissible or impermissible takes me into a place similar to that of the president who is looking to do those very kinds of things, putting people in jail for writing an op-ed, putting them in jail for protesting.
All right, now, of course, Trump hasn't put anyone in jail for writing an op-ed, but how hard is this? You know how entrenched you must be in anti-Semitism to where you can't even say, yeah, I condemn it. Just say, yeah. I mean, hey, we live in a country with free speech, but I don't support that. I condemn the call to eliminate Jews. Cannot do it. She gave him 3. She tried. Got to give it to her. She tried really hard. Like, well, now, come on, you can kind of, like, what do you say to the people? They have a problem with the language and everything. He still couldn't say, yeah, I condemn it. This is the problem that the Democrat Party has. When you have your candidate running for the mayor, for the mayor's position in New York City, and you can't say those words. Oh, and I love that. Well, I'm not into policing language. This is the political party that believes in firing people if you misgender someone. This is the political party that equates misgendering someone to violence. Do we think if let's say he had a staffer, or let's say he were at a rally and there were Klans members there using the N-word and calling for the elimination of black people, and he was asked, do you condemn that? Do we think that he would dance around it like, hey, listen, I mean, I'm against all hate and everything, but I'm not here to condemn anyone's belief system. That's not who I am. That's Donald Trump. This is a moment that to some degree reminds me of Kamala Harris being on The View when she was asked, how are you different than Joe Biden? And she's like, it's like, this is this had to, there you gotta, something, right? And she's like, no, I just can't think of anything. Oh. Hey, that global intifada thing, you condemn it, right? No, hey, that's not what I'm about. And by the way, the 800% increase in funding to go towards anti-hate programs, and not anti-Semitic, but anti-hate. Now, what is that money supposed to be for? What is that money going to do? Because according to Mamdani, he does not believe in even condemning people's speech when it comes to these particular issues. So in my mind, I envision, if you're going to have an 800% increase in fighting against hate, what is it always with the left? What is hate always? It's about language, right? If you misgender someone, if you use this term, if you use that term, it's always about terminology with them. So if his position as mayor is that, hey, I'm not in the business of telling anyone what they can say. They can say whatever they want to. I might not agree with it, but Donald Trump's the guy that tells you what to say. What is all that money going to go towards, all this anti-hate money, if not about language? I think that's a pretty good question. He also believes, well, I've got one other bit of audio I'm going to share after the traffic update. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Hey, don't forget all those home loan needs. I want a great homeloan.com. If you're trying to wait out the interest rate levels where they are now, you are probably not going to come out ahead. Now, are you going to come out behind? I don't know the answer to that. But what happens is you think, oh, well, interest rates, they're at 7, and I want to wait till they're at 3. Well, so are a lot of other people, and that means that there are more people flooding the marketplace. And that means that the price of home supply and demand are going to go up. You add to that the sellers know you have a lower interest rate, which means you can afford a greater monthly payment, which means you can afford greater house. So that also can cause the price of the home to come up. I mean, ultimately, you potentially have a situation where it's about the same either which way. The only difference is you sat around waiting and you were paying someone else's mortgage payment in the form of rent. Now, everyone's situation's different, but that's the information that, you can talk over your personal situation and what it is you're thinking short-term, long-term when it comes to refinancing or purchasing a home. And don't forget, you can always refinance. So you get that home today at a higher interest rate, and then interest rates come down in a couple of years, you can simply refinance. And the difference being is that you've got 2 years of equity in a home. So everyone's different, but the team over there is more than willing to help provide you the information necessary so that you know what is going to be the best decision for you, or at least have a better idea. I want a great homeloan.com because you do. So Mamdani, the Democrat selection to run for mayor of New York, still refuses to condemn or even say he's uncomfortable with the term globalizing intifada. He doesn't, the elimination of Jews, something that, who's he to say, right? Apparently, people who are financially successful and fall into the category of billionaires also, in his assessment, don't really deserve to exist.
You are a self-described democratic socialist. Do you think that billionaires have a right to exist?
I don't think that we should have billionaires because, frankly, it is so much money in a moment of such inequality. And ultimately, what we need more of is equality across our city and across our state and across our country. And I look forward to work with everyone, including billionaires, to make a city that is fairer for all of them.
Even though I don't believe they should exist. That is the sort of perspective and rhetoric that is accepted by and oftentimes utilized by people who take out CEOs of massive corporations, like the CEO of a healthcare industry. It is this, not just a belief, but validation by people, including this Democrat who is running for mayor of New York, who says billionaires they shouldn't even exist. Now, of course, it's all built upon this false idea that somehow if you get rid of billionaires, everyone will have all the money that they want. Now, of course, that's never happened anywhere. And there's no sort of actual formula or evidence that suggests that it could actually work out that way. But it sure sounds nice. Why not get rid of millionaires also? How about people that make six figures? I mean, why is it just billionaires? Can we explain that? Well, of course not, because there's no logic behind it anyhow, other than what generally happens with people on the left, and that is you pit citizens against one another. You create enemies amongst neighbors, amongst friends, amongst social groups, and tell them you need me to punish that enemy for you. They're out to get you. The reason you don't have everything you want is because of that person over there. That's not leadership. That's divisiveness, and it is a sign of a lust for power. Now, while Mamdani was yesterday on NBC doubling down on his refusal to even criticize the call for the elimination of Jews, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries was on ABC's This Week saying that he should probably, quote, clarify his position on globalizing the Intifada. Oh, it seems pretty clear. It seems very, very clear. All right. The Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF if you'd like to text in any thoughts, any comments. Love for you to do so. The next hour, Chuck Todd laments Democrat Party is, quote, a collection of people that just don't like Trump. Oh, really? Noting this is part of the problem that the Democrat Party is having right now, is that there really isn't anything that they ultimately stand for other than being against Trump. Now, there is some truth to that. We've got news in 60 seconds. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello and welcome, everyone, to the show. My name is Nick Reed. Streaming live, KSGF.com. Do you know what? You know what was a year ago on Friday?
I do. Was it the debate?
Yes, it was. In fact, the debate that was the beginning of the end of
Old
the
Joe.
old Joe.
What's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look,
It's just one of the best moments.
Yeah, he beat it to death.
Where he talked about beating Medicaid or Medicare. Yeah, that was another one of the moments.
Should have played that
Well,
one.
and some of the visuals too. I forgot visually how out of it he appeared, and it was one of those exchanges in which, watching the video, his mouth is wide open and he's looking at Trump with his, and it's like nothing is. You really do recognize that he just looks like he didn't even know what was going on. And then someone had posted, who was it? They had reshared I think it was a DNC posting right after the debate that claimed Biden won. It was a victory. And they were like, that didn't age well. And the fact that there were still, for a period of time, they were trying to act like it was a victory. Because I remember they actually that night said that they couldn't wait for another debate or something.
Yeah.
And I remember talking about how they're trying to essentially pretend like, he did such a great job, and that he can't wait for a second debate. And I was like, oh boy, surely not. They were talking about it on the 5, and Jessica Tarlov, who of course is left-wing Democrat, had said, and I thought this was interesting, that she had not watched the debate because I don't know what she had going on, but she said in the morning when she went to her phone, it was just nonstop. It was just text message after text and voice, and she was like, "Oh no, I am not going to watch this now." She just knew it must have gone horribly wrong, which of course it did, and it's just such a crazy thing. And I love that they're now openly speculating that the debate was chosen so far in advance of the convention in order to perhaps just get this thing over with and essentially sabotage Biden, which that was something we talked about before the debate even happened, that the only reason it made any sense to do it, we forget that those debates usually don't happen until like the month before the actual election, certainly after the nominees are done, but the conventions hadn't even occurred yet. It was unheard of. So you had these two individuals that weren't even, quote, technically the official nominees for the party, and it was the Biden people that said, let's do this debate. Remember he put out that face, or it was a video thing, he was really going to smoke Trump in the debate, and it was just absolutely crazy. And now it is something that they're acknowledging, or at least speculating that this was. Now, some are saying it was done to sabotage him. I still believe it was in order to it was a make it or break it. That, all right, if he makes this, if he's able to do it, then we know now. But if not, we still have enough time to overturn the elections in all the states for the Democrat nominee and replace him. And that's exactly what happened.
Yep.
I mean, that's exactly what happened. It just makes sense. Makes sense. It's, when you recognize that this is a party that increasingly only believes in election outcomes if it goes their way, and if not, well, we'll just overturn the election. It all made sense that's why they wanted that debate as early as, so there was enough window of time to overturn the election, and they did just that. They did just that. Springfield's Talk 1041, latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we have a chance for scattered showers and thunderstorms, otherwise partly sunny with a high near 87. Tonight, a chance of showers and thunderstorms with a low around 67. For your Tuesday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 85. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny with a high near 88.
All right, Chuck Todd, let's see. He was doing a podcast, and he was on with Charlie Rose of CBS and talking about the Democrat Party, and this is Chuck Todd's assessment with what I would argue is, even from his perspective, part of the problem Democrats are currently having.
The Democratic Party, a left of center party.
I think you've just I think this is the identity crisis that they have. I think it's just a collection of people that don't like Trump right now, right? And that served them well in 20. But imagine trying to create a big tent that had AOC and John Kasich in it, right? You know? Or how about Liz Cheney and AOC? You're sort of going to rip a hole in the middle, right, as you're trying to stretch that tent. And I think that's why they sort of have lost they're just, it feels like they're way too poll tested. It feels like that they're trying so hard to sort of keep their suburban voters, and that's been part of their problem.
Now, the latter part of what he noted there is that they're way too poll tested. I don't know who they're poll testing. They clearly aren't listening to the poll testing, because this is a political party that, of course, has managed to align itself with the extreme minorities, particularly on these 80-20 issues. And I don't know that there's ever been any political party, well, if either of the political parties has been on the 20% end of an issue and made it the issue. I mean, you know, you could see a political party that on a particular issue is not in line with the majority of Americans, but you don't go out and lead with that, right? You're kind of like, well, let's not focus on that so much. Let's focus on other things. The problem for the Democrats is when it comes to the actual issues, they lead with the things in which a majority of Americans are against them. So Chuck Todd to assess this and say it appears as if they're just so focused on poll testing, I don't know. I think that's, I don't even if he knows if what he's talking about there, if he's just, you know, words are just coming out of his mouth. But there is, and I mean, this is just obvious. Once again, Chuck Todd pretending as if he really stumbled upon something, and Charlie Rose noting that, or asking, do you think that the Democrat Party is left of center? And he's like, oh, we've just really stumbled upon it here. I mean, here's the great revelation. It's almost as if this party is just filled with people who hate Trump. This is not a revelation. This is very clear. It's been very clear. That's all that they campaign on. Trump is evil. Trump is Hitler. Trump is a dictator. Trump's going to build concentration camps. Trump is going to cause people to remember this second time around, you had these stories that people in the LGBT community were stockpiling weapons because, Trump was going to, and Trump supporters, by way of Trump, were going to start hunting them down. I mean, everything it's just this Trump derangement syndrome. Now, that doesn't mean that the party is, in terms of an ideological bent, it is extremely and continuing to become more extreme on the left. And that's because people on the left are demanding of compliance. They are authoritarian in nature. And so if you have a giant tent that has, as a political party, you have simply defined yourself as, well, we hate Donald Trump. Everyone who hates Donald Trump, come in our tent. And so you can have all walks of life. You can have the Liz Cheneys and the Paul Ryans. And then, of course, the Ocasio-Cortezes and the Nancy Pelosi's. And you have this giant tent whose only unifying trait is we hate Donald Trump. But somebody, because it's a tent, you've got to have a ringmaster. When you have a giant tent filled with people of different ideological bents, those who are on the furthest left are going to be the ones that end up in charge, because they are the most authoritarian by nature. They are the ones who are going to demand compliance of everyone else in that tent, and if you don't comply with them, then you will get out of the tent. We will force you out. Tulsi Gabbard is an example of that. RFK Jr. is an example of that. Joe Rogan is an example of that. Elon Musk, an example of that. Those are individuals that ideologically they were more on the left, but because their number one goal and priority and driving force wasn't a hatred for Trump, they were forced out. Because the authoritarian wing of the Democrat Party that is in that tent, they just by default, that's who they are. And this is, again, how this plays out, time is going to tell. But increasingly, it is the authoritarian left that is making the gains within the Democrat Party. And that, by the way, that goes hand in hand with anti-Semitism. That is an authoritarian perspective. Now, it may be rooted in other areas, but it is the authoritarian perspective that makes people believe, because they don't like the Jews, they disagree with the Jews, that they should be able to eliminate them. That's the authoritarian approach. This is how you get an anti-Semite selected by Democrats to be their mayoral candidate in New York City. And the ultimate question is, who's going to be victorious there within that tent? And it is extremely unlikely that the normal, quote, normal people are going to take that party back over. Because authoritarians do not play by the same rules. And by nature, those that aren't necessarily authoritarian in nature but are Democrats for a number of other reasons, they will sit silent. They will comply. And that's what we're watching happen. That's how you end up with polling that shows a majority of Democrat voters feel that, killing Trump, probably be for the best. It's not good for the country. It's not good for humanity. But unfortunately, that's what we have in terms of one of the two political parties. And for people who don't like the Republican Party, particularly if you're on the left, you are crafting an arena in which people that are normal don't really see it as a choice. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company. I know a lot of you experienced storm damage around the Springfield metro area last night. And whether you have missing shingles or you have a tree limb on your roof, don't go at it alone. Make sure to reach out to Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. They offer free roof inspections and they guide you through that entire insurance process, from questions like, hey, should I remove this tree limb myself, or should I wait for insurance, or do you think this will be covered? They're with you every step of the way, and they don't make you sign anything during this entire process either. They provide residential services, and if your business has damage, no worries, because the Pyramid team also offers commercial services too. So whether you need a whole new roof or just a simple roof repair, make sure to schedule that free roof inspection with the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now you can find all their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
You know who Rick Harrington is?
I don't think so.
Pawn Stars.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right. Yeah, he's one of those. A lot of times the name is like, oh, but you say Pawn Stars, you know who he is. So he was doing a podcast interview, and he has had a number of interactions with Donald Trump. I don't know how many and to what capacity, but enough to where he was asked about, on this podcast, his favorite sort of interaction with Donald Trump. And I want to play this audio. I just thought it was a neat story. And it's one that he shared recently. Again, and the question was, what's your favorite interaction that you've ever had with the President of the United States?
When he called me up and apologized to me. For what? This is in 2018. He's having a rally here in town for a guy running for Congress, someone running for Congress and Senate, and they wanted me to announce him at the rally. So I show up with my son Jake and my daughter Serena. White House staff, hey Rick, how's it going? Like, come on this way. And we go to backstage, and like Secret Service goes, he's not on the list. And they're going like, but it's Rick Harrison, his friend's like, not on the list. Doesn't matter. And I'm literally trying to call like a U.S. senator and some other people, some congressmen. I can't get a hold of anybody. Secret Service throws me into the public and I am getting mobbed. And we had to leave. We could not stay there. So we ended up driving home. I dropped Jake off. I'm so pissed off. I'm going to the bar. I get like a block from the house, and then like Senator Heller's number pops up on my truck. And we're like, and like Senator Heller knows I have no filter. So the first words out of his mouth is like, Rick, before you say a word, the President of the United States would like to talk to you. And the first words out of Trump's mouth were, Rick, I am really sorry. This is all my fault. Because my White House staff, they work for me. They screwed up. That makes it my fault. I'm sorry. They should have informed the Secret Service. So I'm sorry. Will you please come back down to the convention center? We'll try and make this happen. And you're not going to tell the President of the United States no. So I turn around, go back to the house, grab my son Jake. He says, the President wants us to go to the convention center. Where we get there? But it was funny. So we're driving down there, and then I got a weird phone number pop up on my truck there. And I got like, some guy goes like, this is such and such with the Secret Service in D.C. I have the Secret Service guy at Vegas on location. We have the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Undersheriff, and all these people are on the phone. The big guy says, get you to the convention center. Where are you at? What are you driving? I'm saying, when I'm driving a gray Raptor, I'm going down Desert End right now. He goes like, where are you at? I'm going like, right at Durango. When you get to Decatur, whether the lights red or green, stop, flash your headlights. So we literally, the light is green, we got people honking at me, I stop, and all of a sudden, like 8 cop cars that come out of nowhere, I get a phone call, follow us. And I got my son there going like, Dad, who do you know? I'm like, I guess I'm kind of important. And they got us to the convention center, and my son got his picture with the president.
I thought that was a neat story. Oh, have you really?
Yeah,
I've never heard that story.
Like a Facebook reel or something, but yeah, that's pretty neat.
It's not an uncommon type of story, and we've played some of these, whether it is somebody that is more famous, like a Rick Harrington or a Kathy Lee Gifford. We had played audio in which she was talking about how there was her husband, there were threats on his life, and when Trump found out about it, he sent a helicopter. I think she had just given birth, if I remember right, to one of their kids, and put her up in one of like his hotel or his suite so that she would be protected. Because I guess it was a pretty serious situation for whatever reason. Some psycho was out looking to kill him. And Frank had reached out to Trump, and Trump said, "Don't worry about it, I'll take care of him." And one of the things, though, that he did when he had called Kathy Lee, he didn't tell her why. He didn't want her to be scared. And so he said, "Oh, you just had a baby. It'd just be nice for you to get away from everything. And so just, let me take care of you for a few days." And she would later learn that, he had done this in order to keep her safe and her new baby safe, and didn't tell her that's why. Didn't use it as an opportunity to like, look at me. And then we played audio also of a black woman from New York who had talked to a local reporter, I think several years ago, and about how well before Trump was running for president, I forgot when she said it was, but she was heading to throw herself off a bridge. And she was sort of walking through the streets very, very distraught, and ran into him, and he talked with her and calmed her down, and just treated her like a human being. And she says that saved her life. She was on her way to throw herself off a bridge, but because of him stopping and asking her, what is wrong, and talking with her, that saved her life. And there are numerous stories like that. And, these are you hear the old cliche of character is how you're acting when people aren't looking. And I think that the fact that these stories pop up, and there are numerous other stories, people that are just everyday people somehow had an interaction with Trump, whether while he was president, running for president, or before he was president. And he behaved in a way that many people would do so that they could go out there and brag about it. But you never hear about it from Trump. Trump isn't the individual that puts the stories out there. It's the individual people that he touched. And I just think that says a lot. And I know for people who hate him, there's going to be some sort of rationalization as to why it is that we should not take these moments in time that we are aware of and see that as part of who he is. But the fact of the matter is, so many people that are in his position in life, even again before he ran for president, and you hear stories from average people having interactions with them, and it's usually because it's not a good story. Somebody will talk about their experience running into this famous person or that famous person, and the reason that it's being talked about is because they were treated very poorly. But that's not how it is with Trump, and I think that says something. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield Stock 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we have a chance for scattered showers and thunderstorms, otherwise partly sunny with a high near 87. Tonight, a chance of showers and thunderstorms will continue with a low around 67. For your Tuesday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 85, and looking ahead to Wednesday, sunny with a high near 88.
During the Friday Road Show this past Friday, which we will be there this Friday. I know it is Independence Day, it's a holiday, but we're going to be out there broadcasting, just to give you a heads up. And this past Friday, Lori Rook, Ozarks Elder Law, stopped by and chatted with us for a bit. One of the things we talked about is this misconception, understandably, a lot of people have, about the lack of a need to have some sort of official will if you aren't leaving anything major behind. You think of giant assets or homes, but when it comes to knickknacks or, paintings that aren't of any real monetary value, you think, well, I don't really have much to leave behind. But she noted that she had dealt with one of the lengthiest, most drawn-out battles with a family was over a painting that wasn't anything monetarily of value whatsoever. But you had these family members that, just a number of them said, no, I want it. And the amount of money and time they spent battling this out, because that had not been laid out ahead of time, was just insane. Those are the sorts of things that can happen if you don't make sure that you have a plan in place. And downloading from online, particularly in Missouri, some sort of do-it-yourself will, it just doesn't hold up. So whether it is planning for your medical decisions when you can't do it on your own, or making sure you don't leave reasons behind for your family to have to fight against one another, or if they get along, be in that uncomfortable position of vying for something that is meaningful, be it just a painting or something of a greater value. Ozarks Elder Law, 10 area locations, free consultation, and no on-the-clock payment. In other words, you aren't billed by the hour. They will let you know up front, here is what you need to have us do, and this is what it will cost, and so there's no surprises in that way. OzarksElderLaw.com is the site, and then, of course, you can always just go to Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. There was an audio exchange. This is CNN again, and it has become an ongoing joke that it doesn't matter what Trump does, the left will figure out a way that it's bad. And if Trump has an ally, or if Trump is benefiting someone, if somebody benefits because of Trump policies, by default, the left has to take the opposite position. Someone had noted, though I'm sure they're not the first, that if Trump cured cancer, he would be accused of putting oncologists out of jobs. And that's true. I mean, as absurd as it sounds. Now, that being said, one of the arguments that the left has been making against tariffs is that all that was going to get passed on to the consumer, and that it was going to be this tax of like $12,000 a person because of this, and that it was all going to get passed on. They went to great lengths explaining how it was all going to get passed along. And so tariffs, because corporations are bad and evil, are going to be harmful to the consumer. Well, that hasn't turned out to be the case. Now listen to the way that the left-wingers on CNN discuss this reality.
The S&P 500, the Dow Jones, all up today. They've recovered everything that they lost since Liberation Day. Things are actually going really, really well. This whole thing about GM, the CEO saying that they're going to be, there's going to be a $5 billion cost to the tariffs. But she also said something very important. She said, this will not be passed on to the consumer. So where is it going to come from, you might wonder? Well, they brought down their projections. Not all of it will be. No, she said none of it will be passed on to the consumer, that this will come out of the profits. They projected 14 billion profits. They're taking that projection down to 10 billion. This is what we want.
Okay, wait.
This is what we want. Okay. We want tariffs. So we want manufacturing. We want the billionaires to pay their fair share, and we want the cost not to be passed on to the consumers. And that's what we're seeing. Such a great example.
Actually, no. Hold on. Let me just let me just try to understand this. So GM's profits will decrease probably significantly as a result of this. Let's take that.
I'm telling you what they said.
I know. I'm just saying. Okay, let's take that to the next. What do you think is going to happen when GM's profits suddenly drop? What will happen to GM and the people that work there?
The CEO herself, Mary Barra, thanked President Trump for this because she is a patriot and she understands that the situation we're in with China is not sustainable.
Shareholders would like to have a word.
We sold out our future to China. Somebody had to do something about that.
So the corporation's going to take less money. They're going to eat the profits out of the sense of patriotism.
Suddenly being so, pro-corporation and pro-
No. Actually, to be honest with you, I'm not being pro-corporation. I'm actually being pro-people because what's bad for the corporation is going to be bad for the worker. Now, look, I couldn't care less about it. Listen. I couldn't care less about any of the corporations.
Corporations are people, my friend.
They're not
upside down world. It is.
Oh, and how it is. Now, there is a lot of nuance in reality to this, but the ultimate point here is the only thing that matters to the left is how can we blame Trump? How can we take something that's positive and make it a negative? How long have we... Now, their position here, and sometimes, incidentally, there is some truth to it. It just depends on the industry. It depends on a number of different factors. When it comes to tariffs, and I've noted this on numerous occasions, it is not equal in terms of impact, effect. But if you listen to the Democrats and the media in the lead up to and the implementation of tariffs, it was one size fits all result, and that is that consumers are going to have that burden passed on to them. Because corporations are big and they're all about money and they're bad and, anti-corporate. Corporations need to pay their fair share. I mean, these are the mantras of the Democrat Party. Well, so this was a particular case with a pretty massive industry, GM, noting that we are not going to, the CEO saying, hey, our plan is not to pass this along. We are just downscaling our profits. Now, you would think this would be something wonderful for the left, right? I mean, aren't they always railing on corporations because of their massive profits? How often have we heard about these CEOs, these profits, while people are paying more? Oh, look at the profits. That was a large campaign theme during the presidential election, that while inflation was occurring, these evil corporations had these massive profits. How many times do we hear that? That the profits were proof of absolute greed. So here you have the head of GM saying, you know what, we're going to downscale what we were expecting, and we're still going to be profitable, but we are going to eat up, some of that profit is going to offset the tariffs. So here you have a bunch of Democrats on CNN saying how horrible that is. Well, that's horrible. That's horrible. What about the shareholders? What, if a corporation is harmed, then the people are harmed. Well, where did that rhetoric come from? I'd love to have Bernie Sanders sitting down for that conversation. Now, as I noted, there is so much nuance to these particular situations because, some companies are going to pass it along. Some are going to have no choice but to pass it along. Some may not. So, it depends on the company. It depends on the product. It depends on the service. It depends on the circumstance. It depends on, there's so many different variations or variables that come into play. But to hear these, which it is consistent in approach, and that is figure out how this is bad. And Democrats who love to paint corporations as awful, who claim that when Wall Street wins, the little guy loses. These are blanket statements and assertions they make. That corporations need to pay their fair share. that they should be seen as greedy whenever they have these profits. And so what you have is a company that says, actually, we're not going to do it that way. We'll just, on the profit end of things, we're going to downscale a bit our projections, and then everything else is going to stay the same. And now they're upset about that. There's literally no outcome in which they would say, actually, this turned out pretty well. Zero. And they even they're laughing, oh, it's kind of like upside down world. You know, it's all crazy because here we are, Democrats on the side of corporations because corporations equal people all of a sudden. This is why increasingly thinking people do not find a place in the Democrat Party, because thinking people recognize that it is all about one thing. And that was what the earlier part of this hour played audio of Chuck Todd with Charlie Rose saying the Democrat Party has become a party that's just a clobbering together of a bunch of people who hate Trump. As a party, no ideological vision. As a party, no official, hey, this is what we stand for, other than Trump is evil. And throw us a scenario, whatever it is, and we'll explain how he's evil, how this thing that you think is a good thing, you think is a positive thing, we'll figure out a way to tell you it's actually bad. That is where you lose intellectually honest and thinking people, and only foster an environment of individuals that do not or are not willing to or capable of thinking for themselves, but instead want to just find somebody to hate and to blame for their lot in life. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line regarding Trump, and played audio of and I don't know how far back that interview actually was with Rick Harrington of Pawn Stars, talking about this situation with Trump, and you know, there was a local or congressional race in Nevada, and Rick Harrington was supposed to be the person that introduced this guy, evidently, and Trump was there, part of the rally and so forth, and Secret Service didn't have him on the list, so turned him away. And then he got a call from Trump saying, hey, this was my fault. Yeah, it was my staff, but I'm responsible for them. And he, you know, made good on it. And so it was, you know, just another type of story that consistently we hear about people who have personally interacted with Trump, and they don't have any political agenda. It's not some, you know, lawmaker that is out there, you know, trying to tell a story in order to help their own personal careers, but just everyday people, from a, you know, black homeless woman to somebody like Kathy Lee Gifford, and across the political spectrum. And all of the stories just surround what a good person Donald Trump is when it comes to dealing with people and that's just something a lot of people in his position, they don't have. And one of the text messages coming in saying back about 18 years ago, I was looking at buying a house in a roughly $150,000 neighborhood here in Springfield. And the neighbors were friends with Donald Trump and mentioned that he was just a pretty nice, down-to-earth person. And that's consistently what you hear. Now, again, if you're talking to somebody that's trying to make headlines or get a lot of clicks, particularly those on the left, they may say otherwise. But when you're talking just to normal people, or hearing from normal people, you hear these stories of somebody treating them with dignity, and I'm telling you, this is part of the reason that Trump understands what average Americans go through and what is important to average Americans. One of the great frustrations that the Democrats had was trying to convince people this is a billionaire who doesn't care about you. That was part of the campaign theme. Trump doesn't care about you. He only cares about his billionaire backers and donors, of course, of which he doesn't need billionaire backers and donors. Never did. And there was this theme of he doesn't care about you. But people could tell that he does. Part of that is understanding average people, and this isn't something that is isolated to Democrats, by the way. A lot of Republicans, especially those part of the establishment, and they're very wealthy, they also have lost touch with what is important to the average person. So how is it that Trump knows? How does Trump understand, given his billionaire lifestyle? One of the things that he's known for, at least amongst those who have long worked with him or around him, is that he's always very interested in how things work, why they work the way they work, and he's very hands-on. Now, he may delegate, but he wants to know things. And so when he has, through the years, expanded his real estate empire, if there was an issue with the supplier of concrete or, something, he gets a call, hey, we got to do this because of this and the concrete, he was known to, he'd want to go down firsthand and find out what's going on. How does this work? Why is this happening? And because of that, he would see value in people who had valuable information or efforts, and that didn't mean multi-billionaires, though it didn't exclude them necessarily. He would recognize the importance of knowledge and information a guy who lays concrete has for him that he can benefit from just as much as perhaps some multi-billionaire financial or real estate tycoon. And that, for him, it demonstrated a level of respect for people, regardless of their tax bracket, but based off their actual value in terms of work and information and knowledge. And so he because of that, and because of the fact that he wouldn't oftentimes, he'd get down there with everybody. So he understood and was very comfortable. This is also part of the reason that he's always very comfortable with average people. Because that's who he is. He wasn't somebody that, I'm running for president. Now I have to pretend to know what it is that resonates with it. This is why when, Donald Trump, can you imagine any other presidential campaign in which the nominee says, I want to work the drive-through window at McDonald's? They would have been told, are you out of your mind? Can we list the 1,000 reasons that is not a good idea? But Donald Trump understands. He gets it. This is why when he was president the first term and he had one of those college football teams come to the White House, he had Big Macs and French fries and stuff like that, and he was mocked by the media. How uncouth. How unsophisticated. But he knew a bunch of college guys Under any other president, probably would have had some nice sit-down meal with a 7-course of this, half of which is the size of a Tic Tac and words that you can't pronounce, and it would be like, oh my gosh. He knew that that wasn't something that, but instead, all you can eat Big Macs and French fries? He knew. And that's something you can't fake your way through. And his interaction with the average person isn't something that he sees or ever saw as charity or look at me, the billionaire who gives the little guy an opportunity to meet with me and talk with me. No, he sees value in people. This is why he listened to his own son when his own son was like, hey, this TikTok thing, you can't ignore it. You got to utilize this. He listened to him. It doesn't mean that he accepts every idea. It doesn't mean that he believes everything that he's told, but he listens no matter what your lot in life. In fact, the lot in life that isn't the one that he's in, he sees a tremendous amount of value in because he knows he doesn't live that every day. And that's why it doesn't surprise me when you hear these stories of people all walks of life, some being rich and famous, some being just average people, talking about their personal interaction with Donald Trump and just how kind he was to them. I think that's just who he is. GE Appliances announcing this week or last week it's moving even more of its production from China to Kentucky. That is what we call more winning. Glenn Beck's next. Talk with you tomorrow.